Good evening, everyone. Back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris and Mark back on a Monday night asking you the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. It may be raining cats and dogs, but you certainly won't hear us slagging off lower league team stadiums or threatening managers' lives on this episode. That's for damn sure. What's going on with you, mate?
What a day for random crap like
what
that.
What a day
Jesus
indeed.
Christ.
My word, the worst side of content creating. But anyway, hopefully we'll give you a little bit of light to that shade. But what's going on with you, mate? How are you doing?
I'm still, well, I think everybody kind of still looking at the weekend going, oof. Yeah, it was a, well, we've talked about tough watches before, but that was a real tough watch on Saturday, wasn't it? So, and we'll come to it.
It really was, mate. I think I've seen X Factor auditions less painful than that game at the weekend, to be honest with you. But we'll get stuck right into that. We've got loads to talk about tonight. We are live as always, guys. Jump in the comments as you always do, helping the episode flow. And if this is the kind of thing you like, smash subscribe, help get us to that 9,000 subscribe mark. We've got a belter prize for you. I keep saying it, the blue retro McEwen shirt could be yours. If you help get us to 9K, then enter the prize draw that we're going to do. We are one off 8,700 subscribers, so please get us over there even this evening, which would be lovely if you are checking us out for the first time and you haven't clicked that button yet. We are live tonight. Loads of you in the comments already. We'll get to your comments in a minute, but there's only one place to start, Mark, as you said, that honking performance at the Cottage at the weekend, where basically all of the luck Newcastle United have been riding severely since the start of the season firmly ran out with an absolutely atrocious performance that even the biggest Kool-Aid trust the process drinker is finding it hard to justify, because they've gone very quiet on the social media platforms, haven't they, mate?
Yeah, it was just, I think, bad all round. Sort of sums it up, doesn't it? It was bad from, I mean, the initial sort of stage, you thought, okay, yeah, oh, and then it disappeared. I think the disallowed goal was just a prelude to what came next, and there were so many bits and pieces out of that game that would just highlighted the poor side of Newcastle at times. And even in the first 20-30 seconds of the game, you were looking at gaps behind the midfield and in front of the defence that doesn't seem to go away. We talked about it numerous times last season, didn't we, when we brought slides up to show, and needless to say, I've got a couple again.
Next slide, please. Mark's got all COVID-19 on you again, everyone. He's got the slides up.
But it was such a poor performance. But the ridiculous thing is, when Barnes gets that goal early in the second half, you think, right, okay, they've had a rollicking, they've got their opportunity now to turn this round, and that missed opportunity from Fabian Schär is unbelievable.
Oh,
it's one of those moments where
square it, mate. What are you doing? Honestly,
if the luck's in, you score that, you go on and win the game, and it sort of seemed to sum up an awful lot of the performance, that finish, because it was just awful to be in that position to get the goalkeeper to make that mistake in that area of the pitch. You have to hit the target, and he's got such an easy ball to his left. It's almost criminal to not hit the target there.
Absolutely. If I was Isaac, I wouldn't have spoken to him on the ride back home. I'd have said, "Fuck you, Fabian Schär. I'm not talking to you." Honestly, I would have. He would have had the cold shoulder off me. Wouldn't have had a word uttered to him. I mean, the only bit of quality in the game for me, Mark, was Barnes' finish. What a finish again! The way he just kind of takes it, rolls it in one movement, and tucks it away in the bottom corner. This lad, honestly, he could finish a dinner with a bloody muzzle on. He's unbelievable. He's incredible. The way he just puts the ball in the back of the net effortlessly. Whether it's 30-yard rakers or one-on-ones like that. He's so cold. He's brilliant, and we'll get into the kind of change of shape and formation in a minute. But I tell you what, right now, if Eddie Howe is obsessed with the left side being either Gordon or Barnes, it's Barnes all day long for me right now. Gordon is doing fuck all to prove that he deserves that starting berth, especially the weekend. Temper tantrums on the floor, arms up in the air, body language all over the place. I mean, Eddie Howe had to give him a little arm around his shoulder walking off at half-time. I had to give him a fucking clip down the ear, pulled his mullet and said, get your shit together, Gordon, because you're crap. There's loads of speculation about the whole Gordon thing, whether his head's been turned and all that, Mark. But he looks every inch that petulant lad was signed from Everton, and he's not been that player. So it really frustrates me to see him putting in those performances. But Eddie has to have more balls to hoop these players when they're not performing. He seems to constantly leave them on thinking there's just going to be a little bit of magic from somewhere. At the minute, the only person who's got magic in his boots is Harvey Barnes. The rest of them are shite. They're not putting it in. Yes, we're not getting the most out of Isak with the way that we're playing. Eddie even admitted that after the game. Well, we'll fucking change the team to get the best out of Alexander Isak then, mate. You can do it. You're the manager. So it was really disappointing to see that performance. We're totally lost it in the first half. And again, we talked about the errors in this team, the holes in the shape, the lack of personnel, especially defensively, Mark. And you have got your COVID-19 slides, so I won't steal your thunder. So next slide, please, Dr. Faz, and show us exactly what you're talking about, where the problems lie for Newcastle, just to back up what we were saying this morning.
But I mean, just to come to Eddie first and foremost, look, give him a credit for coming out and saying that perhaps he made the wrong choice. I think personnel-wise, it possibly wasn't the wrong choice. It was more to do with the way that he has them set up in that, and we know that Joe Linton and Joe Willock don't play the right side of that midfield three well at all. They're left-sided of that midfield, or they're left-sided forwards. The problem that Newcastle have in that sense is they have four players that want to play that forward left-sided role with both Joe's, Gordon and Barnes, and you can only have one. And you go back to the best that we've seen out of Joe Linton and Joe Willock, aside from the half season on loan for Willock, is when they're playing in tandem on that left-hand side. And that's with Willock's injury and the introduction of Gordon and Barnes to the squad, that's gone. So Eddie needs to find a way of being able to utilise and keep the balance in that midfield. And I just thought that was completely wrong. Change of formation, we'll come to that in a bit, may have sorted that out. But like I said before, initially, when you look at this, I mean, this is 20 seconds into the game and you've already got players splitting the lines. And that ball through from Anderson into Pereira in there immediately puts, 20 seconds into the game and you've already done exactly what we've talked about being the problem. It is having players in behind the midfield line with defenders not willing to step up and cover them. Again, we talked about defenders stepping up. This was 20 minutes into the game, and there's a couple of moments within a moment of this, and this ball through from Iwobi is sort of cuts through the lines again. You can see Jimenez starting to make his move towards the ball, and Dan Burn goes with him and then stops. And this whole move, then you've given Jimenez 5-yard space with Emile Smith-Rowe in tow. There's no other cover there because the midfield three have been really bypassed at this point. Willock's got the cover on here on Pereira, but the other two midfielders completely bypass. It leaves Burn isolated. But it's those sort of balls through that we're seeing as a way to attack Newcastle's midfield and defence. You can cut through. And this was the other one. And funnily enough, this ended up not being a threat. But the warning sign was there when you've got 5 Fulham players across that line behind the midfield. And all it takes is the right ball and Fulham are in.
Yeah.
And you can see, obviously, Anderson's got the ball. Pereira's in that little gap in behind Joe Willock there. Bruno's pulled across into that gap as well. Joe Linton's pulled over and Gordon's tucked in on the far side. there's two balls that could come at this point, and to be honest with you, I'll nick a little bit of an idea from Alex from Toon Review at this, because I know he uses the tactical board as well. But it was the only way I could kind of.
So some people want the green pen, mate. Some people, I think you're doing better than Sky here in the comments here. We've got some great comments for you, mate.
When we get to this point, so the tactical board, I think if you can see it, you might have to blow your screen up a little bit, but
yeah,
that's the kind of setup as it is. And you can see Dan Burn starting to make that move towards Pereira. You can see the arrow from Fabian Schär here that's just starting to just track where to get in behind Jimenez to stop that threat. Now Anderson plays that ball into Pereira, but it doesn't go anywhere. Fortunately, Bruno does get in the way. The easier ball would have been into Jimenez's feet in there. All of a sudden, that again bypasses the midfield. It causes Schär to then have to probably adjust his run into here to come and cover Jimenez, which then leaves Emile Smith-Rowe with a free run into goal. Now, in hindsight, that would have been the far better option for Fulham in that regard. In that scenario, that ball through the line into Jimenez, you can see Jimenez standing there like with his hands sort of waiting for the ball to his feet.
Yeah.
And the setup of that midfield is all wrong. Now, the way that I looked at it before was, if you go back to the tactical screen, and if I can just get the right blinking screen in here, it will take off these arrows, because if that does happen...
Just while you're looking there, Ian's give you a great comment there, baby.
Thanks, man. But if you suddenly, and I know we're going to come to the shape, but if you suddenly change the shape a little bit and drop in almost that double pivot and play two slightly deeper midfielders,
Willock presses out to Anderson. That's the ball.
And Willock's in that gap here where he can press a little bit more. Yes, he can cover off that Pereira pass, but also you've got that pass to Jimenez blocked off. Or there's so much more cover there for Schär and for Burn, where they don't have to make that move to step up. And it's those sorts of ideas and those sorts of tactical tweaks that I think we kind of want to see. The 4-3-3 has worked in so much that there's issues with the press because that's not working properly at the moment. Or certainly there are times when Newcastle press and they overload to one side and it leaves the opposite side completely free. There were times in that game where that happened, and you saw Smith-Rowe and you saw Iwobi target that left-hand side or the right-hand side of Newcastle defence. Yeah. Because the whole of Newcastle's midfield was pushed across to the left-hand side to press that side. It left so much space.
Yeah. Just on this, there's been a few comments flying in. The guys are talking amongst themselves about Eddie Howe. Now, before I pull this comment up and talk about this, I'm not Howe out at all. So Sergeant Charles Zim, I'm not going to go here. Mark isn't either. But these comments, I take a little bit of umbrage with these comments, to be honest with you. So Howe took us from relegation battle to European contenders with Champions League qualification en route. He did, and nobody will ever take that away from him, Sergeant Charles Zim. But however, a football manager is measured with results in the here and now, not in the then. There's managers like Claudio Ranieri won Leicester City a title and he got binned. Carlo Ancelotti won titles in FA Cups at Chelsea, got binned. Mourinho won titles, got binned. Wenger got binned eventually. Eddie Howe is not untouchable as a manager, and Eddie Howe has not done so much that he's not going to be under pressure by picking the wrong team, getting the wrong results. He's a football manager like anybody else. Doesn't matter what he's done. But I'm saying there's managers ahead of Eddie Howe that have done way more than Eddie Howe in their career, won trophies, and they've been binned in this horrible, fickle world of football management. So, it's Eddie Howe is not untouchable as a manager. Can he turn this around? I think he can. I really do think he can. But, it isn't just a case of the players, Mark. Eddie needs to stop being so stubborn as well. He's completely cemented to this 4-3-3 formation at the minute. He doesn't seem to be able to shake it. He brings on different players, but plays the same tactics and the same shit happens. When there's teams that are splitting the lines like you just showed very well in your diagrams there, give Jamie Carragher a run for his money, mate. The issue there is you bring on three different players and they stand in exactly the same positions and the same attack happens against you time after time. Because as I said in the video this morning, not one of those midfielders has the discipline or the nous to drop 10 yards defensively, and the centre-halves don't have the nous to step up 10 yards, thus closing the gap and nullifying this problem that it's happening to us week in, week out, Mark. And City will kill us for it on Saturday if we leave gaps like that.
Potentially. And I just want to come to this comment from Trevor. So, if not Howe out, tell me that you honestly think he's going to change things. George writes stagnation for a year, constant rotten attack. Look, the lifespan of, or the lifetime of the managers has to show that he's learned. And there are times when we can see that he either hasn't learned from those mistakes, or he's unwilling to change the way that he plays. But we've seen changes in the way that he's approached games before. We saw last season when they dropped in Trippier into that midfield role as a sort of a hybrid right back central midfielder at times. It didn't particularly work, but the idea was there to try and combat things like that, where that immediate, a counter attack or playing through the lines was cut off because all of a sudden there's a player in the way that isn't usually there. But I think there are the tools there. There are players there at the club to be able to offer something different. And I just think a tweaking those tactics, a different way of approaching a game. Not every game can be approached with that 4-3-3, that high intensity stuff. We haven't seen the high intensity for donkeys, and I know there are mitigating factors with that, with injuries and things. And Dan Burn isn't Sven Botman.
No, that isn't.
I mean, that's clear.
Well,
and I
to
think
be fair, Mark, Sven Botman wasn't Sven Botman last season. To be fair,
no,
because of this missed injury that was there,
exactly. So a fit Sven Botman,
Sven
does do that step up well, and he likes to play that, and that will bring Fabian Schär in a little bit. And a part of you sort of looks at it and goes, well, is Fabian Schär hindered by the fact that he has to play that slightly more reserved centre-back role because he's playing alongside Dan Burn?
I agree with William, just while you collect your thoughts, just as I had William's comment up there for a long time. The style that got us fourth is unsustainable. Eddie Howe burnt those players out, and they're now 2 or 3 years older than what they were then. And I think it's caught up on them. And that's why the injuries happened last season, because we tried to play the same kind of intense press without really increasing the personnel of the starting 11. And then even then, how many times did we say last season when we were in the Champions League, why is he playing Trippier and Burn week in, week out? Why is he not playing Tino and Hall? Why is he not mixing it up against Wolves away? And he wasn't doing it. So he has got himself to blame a lot for those kind of things. And I'm not turning on him and don't throw your process T-shirt at me and pour Kool-Aid on my head and set me on fire. What I'm saying is he's not infallible and he has made mistakes. And he came out of the weekend and said he made a mistake, and fair enough. But if you're saying Joe Willock wasn't ready to start the game, what'd you start him for? When Sandro Tonali's sitting on the bench, who's starred for Italy in 2 games midweek, who's saying, right, let's not play Tonali? Who's making that decision? Because I would like to know why you made that decision. What was it about Tonali that made him not be somebody you should start? Was it because he wasn't? I've got a theory actually. It's just popped into my head, right? I think because the players fuck off on an international break, and Eddie has the players on an international break. He works with them when the lads are away, and I honestly think he almost tries to reward them for being at training when the rest of them are away on international duty. And it's over. There's certain players he can't do that with, like Nick Pope, for example. We'll get onto him in a second, but certain players he can't do that with. But like Tonali was away with Italy and he come back and, Joe Willock's trained really well, so he's going to start ahead of you. What? No, that's not going to work,
That surely can't be.
Well, I fucking hope not, Mark. But the man's not talking to him. The man's not explaining why he's not starting the guy. And the journalists aren't asking the question. And any journalists who ask the questions get attacked for being negative and all this other stuff. They're too busy asking him, what band he likes, and whether he's got a bromance with a fucking sporting director. The state of the journalism in those press conferences are fucking embarrassing. They really are. You'd be better off. You'd be better off with a piss head coming off the street with a fucking bottle of wine and a paper bag to ask Eddie Howe a question. Asking what time the 306 comes probably be more interesting than some of their questions. But they're not asking them questions about football. It's driving me fucking mad.
No, I was going to say, I remember standing outside, was it Pret on Northumberland Street with a guy when I was trying to kind of be on the other camera after a game a couple of seasons ago and had some pissed bloke come up, was asking better questions than the journos do at times. And
then just to cut across here, I'm going rant mode here, and then the jump on the fucking white steeds of righteousness, like Lord Luke of Edwards and fucking Sir Andrew Musgrove, telling the fans that it's their fault for having a problem with the way we're playing. Do you know what? Fuck the pair of them. You know, fans have got a right to criticise the way the club is playing and the way and what they're seeing on the pitch. And if they disagree with some of the manager's tactics, or they actually just want to know why you're not playing your best players and why you're playing players that are unfit, that's a genuine question. And every fan has got a God-given right to ask that question. I hate this modern day world of football with these arse-kissing, brown-nosed journalists like them two, who are so far camped up Eddie Howe's arse, all you can see is their feet hanging out of his ring piece. You know, fucking stop having a go at fans for asking why the team's playing so shit. There are a couple of ball bangers, a pair of them, that fucking drive me nuts. They really do. You know, people slag off Hope. I've seen it in the comments already tonight. At least he's got the balls to ask a difficult question as to why it was shit, why haven't we signed players? You know, these other journalists are such fucking wet wipes. Honestly, they spend more time making doe eyes at Eddie Howe in press conferences than asking real questions. And I'm just fucking sick of it, man. Honestly, it's Eddie Howe must be sick of it. Ask me a proper question. Bunch of fucking wet wipes. Sorry, mate. I'm done now. I'll let you come in and have a chat.
Are you finished? Honestly,
I'm just sick of them, man. I'm sick of them.
Rants. Let it go.
Yeah, I'm sick of them. Honestly, like I see the shit on social media for them, and they just get on me tits. They really, really do. Like the complete, you know, arrogance and entitlement and self-righteousness that spew out of their faces just drives me mental. You know, I see Luke Edwards was at a couple of talk-ins. I think if I went, I'd hoy me glass at him. I really would. I'm not going to go to them talk-ins.
No threatening people. We've seen that.
Yeah, honestly. But I mean, the guy is such a wanker that you know, he plays this pantomime villain, but he is just such a fucking dickhead. He's blocked us on X anyway, and good riddance, because I think you're a bellend, Luke, to be honest with you. So fuck you. So anyway, Mark, back to the point question. Sorry, mate.
I forgot what we were talking about. But, I think to come back to kind of about the change, about the way to approach it, about we have to see if Eddie is going to stay, and no, realistically, everybody wants him to succeed because he's been on such a good journey with the way that the club have gone. But things do have to change in the way that, you know, that it's been going. And there was one other thing that I picked up, and I'm not entirely sure whether this visual will come through very well, but I will give it a try. Is somebody pointed out that Newcastle have conceded, was it 101 shots so far this season? So it got me my mind just having a look at just to see. That's Eddie Howe's lifetime at Newcastle.
Looks like my blood pressure on a run, mate.
Well, to be honest with you, I think that was Newcastle fans' blood pressure from the start of the game to the end of the game.
That's like a rant meter for me, I think, mate. Just big spikes up and then down.
That initial that first game, the shots on target was high. You can see a steady decrease in shots on target on average right the way through that first season that he's in charge. The first dip is the first game of the following season against Forest. You then continue to see, on average, shots decrease right the way through to the end of that Champions League qualification season. Then it spikes, and that's the first game of the season against Villa. There were so many shots on for both sides that day. It was ridiculous. And it started to drop again at that point. And then I think we'll see the sort of the steady increase, and it's sort of increasing back to the initial point where it started from when he took over, and things were a mess at that point in time. And then this season has stepped up again, so the average is now much higher than it was previously, and we've seen that steady decrease.
But you can't criticise though, Mark. You're not allowed to criticise the manager by a lot of this fan base. You're not allowed to do that. You know, people living in the past too much. You know, we've got to be one of the only clubs who live in the past. You know, like I say, Ranieri won the league for Leicester. And I remember talking to Leicester fans. I knew a few Leicester fans, and they said, "We love the man, but we're playing rubbish week in, week out. We're getting battered by everybody. He has to go." You know, and I'm not saying get rid of Eddie Howe, right? I don't want him to go. I still think that he has time to turn around. You'll go into the comments before, but he needs to stop being so stubborn and he needs to understand that something isn't working. You know, and the answer to the question is not let's just bring Sean Longstaff back in. That'll fix everything. I mean, I saw a ridiculous piece written by the mag saying how we're better with Sean Longstaff in the team, and here's the proof to prove it. And they pulled out some spurious stats from somewhere. You know, I'll tell you what, let's play Sean for 6 weeks and see how good we are for the next few fixtures that are coming up against City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Brighton. And then let's just see how them stats compare if Sean plays every single game, because I don't think we'll win them.
I sort of understand where they were coming from in that regard, but I think their
Kissing
argument,
the local lads' arse is what they were doing.
maybe,
mate. That's what
but
they were doing.
I just think that there's an element of when Sean plays, there's balance in that midfield. If you look at when Newcastle are at their best, they have a player that's comfortable playing on the right side of midfield, Bruno, and then a player comfortable on the left. The Fulham game was a prime example of where you've played two players that are comfortable playing on one side and then try to get one of them to play the other, and they're not capable of doing that. The answer would have been to play Tonali in that role because he's comfortable playing in that revolt.
He's a better player, and he's a better player. I'm not saying Sean's rubbish because he's not, but he's a limited player. And Tonali is a far superior player. The truth of the matter is, Mark, right, I was saying this to me earlier on, right? And people don't want to hear this. The truth of the matter is there's a huge percentage of this squad that is not top six quality. Simple as that. There's a sprinkling of them who are, and those players have not turned up so far this season. Bruno Guimaraes, Alexander Isak, Anthony Gordon, Joe Linton, you know, at a push maybe. They haven't showed up. None of them have showed up. And that's why we're not playing very good football. You know, people can go, oh, we're 6 man, we lost one game, we would have been top of the table if we won against Fulham. But it's just paper in the cracks. The next few games coming are going to really level this up and show you how far off the pace we are. It really, really is. Starting with City at the weekend. If we go into that City game like we played against Fulham, we are going to be annihilated, Mark. Absolutely annihilated. And I don't care how much Kool-Aid you've swigged, that is fact. That is truth.
I think an unprepared Newcastle will end up on the wrong end of a City result. If they go in with the right attitude, and we've seen it happen, you've only got to go back to last year with the obviously when they won right at the death the season before, the 3-3. When Newcastle are at it, when Newcastle have their game plan right for that particular game, they're a match, and they can match
hard to beat. Yeah,
and you know, you might concede, but the players in there to score goals as well. But they have to have the right attitude, the right game plan right from the off. They can't go into it like the Fulham game, completely half-cocked, not ready for the game, with a manager who's made admits he made a mistake with the way that it lined up. And all the world and wife can see that you've got two of the most quick, powerful, wide players in that Fulham side, and he's played the two slower fullbacks.
I think I'm going to say it. I think Lloyd Kelly's shit. I'm sorry, I wasn't impressed when we signed him. He's had 150 grand a week. Which other top 6 team would have signed Lloyd Kelly? I'll answer it quickly. None of them. Not a single fucking one of them. He's not a good player. He's rank average at best. He really is.
He's on 100,000, just under £100,000 more than Dan Burn, and he's no better than Dan Burn.
He's poor. He's
and the argument will always be that he was a free transfer. You don't have a transfer fee, but if you take that over the lifetime of the contract, it's an enormous sum of money over 5 years over somebody like Dan Burn, and it's you wouldn't pay that money as a transfer fee. So I don't understand. But
George has got me there. Lloyd Kelly is excited as eating wallpaper paste. He's not like when you're signing players like Lloyd Kelly, Vlachodimos, John Ruddy, right? I'm sorry, but if any other manager had signed those players, we'd have been up in arms, man. It's because and you know, and again, I'm not denigrating what Eddie's done, right? I do like what Eddie's done. He's probably the best manager I've had since Bobby, really, in many ways, right? But had he not got us to 4th that season, I don't think a lot of the fans would give him half the wiggle that they've given if he hadn't got us to the Champions League that season. If we'd finished 10th or 11th that season, I don't think half the fans would be giving him the credit or the free pass, that they're giving him. Yes, he's improved Joe Linton. He made Miggy look like an actual footballer, which was a miracle in the season. He improved Sean immensely, right? But all of those players now have reached their ceiling. They will not go any higher. They are here, and that's it. And they're not going any higher. And if everything they've got to give, Mark, right now is not good enough, then why did you not upgrade? Why did you not? Why didn't you look at the two players that you sold to cash in the 70 million quid, who had probably higher ceilings than those players I've just mentioned? And why didn't you try and sell the rest of them? And I don't think for 1 second they tried to sell Sean Longstaff, they tried to sell Callum Wilson, not hard enough. They tried to sell Miguel Almiron, not hard enough. I really don't think they did, because if they did, they would have sold them, because somebody would have bought them. But it might have only been 30 million you would have got for the three of them, possibly, but somebody would have bought them.
Can I ask, and this might be a controversial question, and to come back to your point about players reaching their ceiling, have we seen the best of Joe Linton now?
Maybe, because he seems to be regressing. He's not, but because he's been out injured so long, it's hard for you to measure that, because he's been out injured for so long. Is he just struggling to get back to his prime? You know what I mean? I get that, and it is a genuine question. I'm not saying that he has, but it's just no one can explain that, Trevor. No one at all. Actually, the only thing I can think of is they were adamant that Dubravka was on his way out, and it was just cover. But yeah, the Joe Linton thing. When we've seen the likes of Miggy and reach their peak and fall back away, that my thought was, have we seen that with Joe Linton? He's not a natural midfielder. He's not a natural central midfielder. He's been brilliant. In that position for 2 years, he's really been very, very good, and we know what he can do in that. But it just all seems to be gone all of a sudden with him. And he does look lost. Sean's right. He looks lost, Joe Linton. He looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, that when we pulled up that one for the 6 video this morning, his complete lethargy of running back and trying to pick anybody out or close anything, that wasn't Joe Linton. Joe Linton's a monster, smashing into people. What he seems to be doing now is crunching into people 10 minutes late and laughing about it like it's a gag. And you think, well, no, Joe, that's not what you do. You're supposed to do that in the heat of the moment, in the middle of the play. I mean, we'll move on to the next section, Marcus. We'll be here all night talking about this. So we'll talk about changing shape. So something ain't working, right? That's the truth. Something ain't working. Just before we talk about that, because we have been talking quite a lot about the thing, I was listening to the True Faith podcast. I give them a shout out. Yeah, Audie, friend of the channel, Audie does a lot of stuff now on True Faith, and he made a really good point. And he said, when the cameras are panning in on your CEO and your sporting director all of the time looking for a reaction, something's not right. And there's a lot of this going on now with the TV. There's a lot of it going on now. People can blame Craig Hope, for stoking the flames and all that kind of stuff, but there is no smoke without fire. And I don't like that, Mark. That's the Newcastle of old. I don't like that message. But what Eddie Howe has to do is get performances on the park and play half-decent football to stop all of that noise, and that ain't happening at the minute. He's getting the results previously to Fulham, but the football's turgid, So, and you look at the players like Bruno, Gordon, Isak, who everybody's been sniffing around. There's even talk about Rodri being out all season, which I know is a real shame for Rodri, but great for us in the next fixture. But people are talking about sorry, Rodri. People are talking about City going for Bruno in January, as a replacement. So there's going to be more links to those players. And if we keep playing turgid football and the cameras are panned in on our board, this is just not it's not a united feeling for me at the club at the minute. It's I'm battle weary with it, mate. It's really driving me nuts at the minute.
Do you know what it reminds me of? And he got crucified for saying it at the time. It reminds me of the goldfish bowl comment, because everything now is sort of hyper focused on what's going on. And I think I've had this pop back at a few people. I get why Craig Hope asks the questions, because that's his job. Sooner or later, you've just got to move on and get on with it and just let the chips fall where they fall. But you're right. When the camera keeps cutting to them after every poor bit of play or a goal
missed shot or something like that,
you almost see the writing on the wall, and the only way, I mean, Eddie has to coach this out now. He has to. For me, he has to change something. There's got to be a variation in what he does, because it's too easy for teams to play against. We've seen from those couple of stills, and we've seen that a number of times over last season and this season, where at times it's too easy to play against Newcastle, because if you break that line, you're through. And if you've got some pace about you in those wide areas, you're gonna have success.
Quick question: is Bunce having any influence on the lack of intensity? I know some people have poo-pooed it, because, and the more I thought about it, I think I said it in the post-match. I thought about it for a little bit, and we've seen these performances the back end of last season before Bunce even came in.
Yeah.
So maybe I was a little bit off, off field with it, just with me kind of general dissatisfaction of the game. Maybe this isn't anything to do with Bunce. What's your thought process on it? Because it's easy to attach blame to these guys, because someone's already called them vultures in the comments there. They are suddenly becoming the us and them type thing between Eddie and them, and this is the kind of shit Keegan left for, if everyone remembers. Yeah. Too much commercialism. That's why KK walked, and we don't want the same thing happen to Eddie. But is this on Eddie and not on the changes upstairs? It's nothing to do with Bunce, or is it a bit of both?
It's difficult to apply blame to Bunce purely and simply because you've just hit the nail on the head there. That we saw the lack of intensity at times last season, but that we all put that down to injuries. But has it been a step up to go, well, actually, you can't keep playing at 100 miles an hour for 90 minutes, because you are going to run players into the ground. We've seen players pick up niggles. You've seen Willock break down.
That's a great shout, Philip. That's what I want from the journalists. I know I don't want to pick fights with them, but do your fucking job, as Ricky would say. Do your job. Ask the questions. I know that's not as good as me, Steve Bruce, but do your job. Ask your questions. Ask difficult questions. Ask about Bunce. Don't ask about stupid fluffy bollocks, or that Louise Taylor asking if Sandro Tonali's visited a children's hospital and brought soup for the soup kitchen, or whatever the fuck she's going to ask next week. Ask questions about the team and the tactics and the training. Ask about that. That's what the important questions are.
Isn't that what press conferences for football always used to be? You asked about how players were training that week and what had been going on, and how
was he feeling, how was he looking, how was he, Alexander Isak had a great spell with Sweden. Do you think he can recapture that form for Newcastle at the weekend? Simple question. What's James Bunce doing on the training pitch? Is he bringing in a different style? Is he trying to change the intensity? Ask the question.
I think Bunce's influence and kind of Baz, I've got you from that, because I think
Eddie did say he was all right. He said he enjoyed having him there, didn't he? Yeah.
And I think anybody that comes in to help, the number of injuries were just unbelievable.
They were really bad. There has to have been something wrong fundamentally with that intensity for those players to be injured as much as they were.
Yeah. And if coming in, and we almost bigged this up at the beginning of the season, where you saw the spells, didn't you? So you would see 10 minutes of high intensity, then it would break, and then another 10 minutes, and then it would break. And I kind of understood where the mentality was in that, because you gave players a rest in games you just weren't constantly asking them to do. You can't run for 90 minutes at that pace. It's just not going to work. You might be able to do it.
Klopp was a master at it, wasn't he? Klopp was a master at it. They would have it in 10, 12-minute spells, so.
Yeah, so I kind of got where that's going, but when you go back to, go to the Fulham game, there was none of it. There was a few minutes second half, but there was just absolutely there's almost no belief in what was going on there. I think that there was a resignation at 2-0 that was the game gone. They almost didn't believe that they could get into it. And I don't believe that Bunce has ruined it. I don't believe that he's come in and had such an influence to say, well, now you just have to stop. You're not going to be able to do any of that high intensity, because every team in the league plays at some point with a high intensity level. We see it from Arsenal, we see it from City, we see it from Liverpool and Spurs. At times they've all got that, and it just seems to be a little bit more disjointed at the moment from Newcastle. And I think that's a factor of poor performance, has been possibly a bit of nervousness from players not playing in the right positions. What's gone on in the summer hasn't helped. The disruption of it's sort of everything rolled into one. You've got Amanda Ramirdad leaving, the rumours around Gordon wanting to go, and all of that kind of doesn't help in the background, and players will react to that as well. And there's a nervousness around the fan base too, which the players will feed off as well. So there's an awful lot, not just the one or two people that have come in the background that will have affected what's gone on.
The Amanda thing is definitely affected a lot more than people want to give it credit to. Thank you very much, Crypto Rambo, for your super chat. Really appreciate that donation, buddy. Only Newcastle fans think Bunce is top draw. He's never been, and he is regressing. Good luck getting 100 million for Bruno. Sorry, I think it says Bruno. I thought it was Bunce there. I was going to say we get 100 million for Bunce. I'll sell him tomorrow. Sorry, Crypto. I was half asleep reading that there, mate. It's been a long day, as a friend of the channel would say as well. But yeah, so moving on, to the shape, mate, because we have been rambling on for ages about this. So we were talking about changing shape. The 4-3-3 to me isn't really working. We've talked about the need for a 6. I think you had a good idea, Mark, for changing the formation to kind of introduce a bit of a double pivot. If you want to pull it up on the screen, we'll see what the guys think about it. And I really enjoyed this formation, and I would like to see it against City, mate. I hope he tries it.
Possibly,
it's want to pull up.
I mean, it's not original. It's nothing original, but it's just when I looked at the way that it was set up, and essentially, if I go back to that slide from before, I almost think that formation or that setup solves a lot of that problem,
plugs the gaps. I think
because it does. If you obviously go back to where you saw Jimenez in the middle, and there was that huge hole in front of him where the ball's easily played through. If you've got Tonali and Bruno sitting a little bit deeper in that gap, that pass is a lot more difficult to play. You can then utilize Joe Willock in front, or Joe Linton in front, or Barnes, or whoever's playing it, and that front three I think can be completely interchangeable. And allow them to press from that point on and keep the gap plugged with one or two of those central midfielders that play almost as a 6-8 hybrid. I don't think either are a natural 6, but I think they could play in that role. They're both a little bit more disciplined. I had this question from somebody the other day: is would you play Joe Linton as a 6? And I just really don't think he's disciplined enough to do it.
No,
he might be able
Joe
to play in.
Fabian Schär or Trippier, I think there's only 2 within the squad that I would try there. To be honest, I think Marcus has already said in the comments, if you're going to play an existing player as a 6, it's got to be one of those 2, because they're both very good on the ball as well. So, and they can take it off the back 4 and do something with it.
You couldn't do Schär at the moment, basically because there was nobody else to take his place in that in the 2 centre backs. But I get that completely. If you had another good level centre back to play in that role, yes, I think Fabian Schär could probably do that. Trippier maybe I think could probably play in that role as well. But I do think if you come back to that slide again, in that gap, if you drop those 2 midfielders back at another 5 yards and have Willock as the one to press from the front, it doesn't solve every problem, and there will be other ones that you can combat, but it stops teams being able to play through that line of midfield.
Well, Trevor wishes you were in charge, Mark. He says, believe you me, there's more chance of me being crowned Miss Teen USA than Howe do with this. It'll be Murphy on the right and Longstaff for stability. I agree, Trevor. That's the frustrating thing about Eddie. It's almost like, somebody said earlier on, I think it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment, how can 2 YouTubers see this and Eddie Howe can't? But this is the frustrating thing, we're football fans, we're allowed the opinion. This is what I was going back to before. I won't blow my stat again, I promise. About the journalists having a go at the fans, for critiquing and for offering an opinion. That lineup you just put there, Mark, for me, I think that is a better shape, and I think you get more out of the players that are in that lineup than you would do than just persevering with 4-3-3 and swapping out, Joe Linton for Longstaff. Because it's the same tactics, it's the same space, the same gap left between the back 4 and the midfield 3. No matter who's playing, that lineup there in the double pivot with Bruno and Tonali will allow them to drop deep and get the ball when they need to push forward and thread passes through to. I mean, look at the pace in that front 4 you've got, and the ability to score goals in Barnes, Isak, Willock, Gordon. that lineup there, I think, will get the best out of those players. I really believe that. And you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to change, kind of depending on the opposition that you're playing. Like a 6. I mean, Sean's saying there, Hall can play as a 6, and to be fair, Lewis Hall is excellent on the ball. And he has much better defensive capabilities now than he had before. At left back, at times he's sometimes looked a little bit out. But maybe that's an option as well. I'm sure. I think, didn't he try Matt Targett in midfield once as well? Didn't he? And then he got injured really quickly against Man United. I think he started Targett as a defensive midfielder.
I'll be honest, Matt Targett in midfield sounds like a nightmare waiting to happen, but that's a different story.
It sounds like something I would do. Well, it really does.
The other thing as well, I mean, I like the idea of Hall there. We've seen him play midfield for Chelsea before, and I think he's comfortable in that position. It also allows him to...
And he's brave. He'll take the ball. He'll take the ball off the defense. He will carry the ball forward. Yeah. And again, that's what you want those midfielders to drive forward at times, and both equally have their defensive head around them. The other thing, and Colton's put this in before I've managed to say it, but as well, if you're looking to try and get the best out of Alexander Isak, Eddie's own words as well,
is so isolated because he's got no one with him. We've seen Isak play brilliantly for Sweden over recent games and in the past as well. He plays really well when there's someone around him. There's a foil, there's a runner, there's a bigger man around. It doesn't really matter. He can play with any of those sort of types around him. So having Willock as a sort of 8 or 10 in that gap behind to be able to play through balls, to be able to get up alongside him or run past him or moving Barnes into there and in and around him, buzzing around that little area to give the defence more of a headache and stop them focusing on just one player. Because at the moment, Alexander Isak's on his own. And it's not until somebody gets alongside, all of a sudden he might pull left a little bit or he'll pull right. And there's a gap in there for somebody else in the defence. But there's none of that. The play has been so far away from him that he's just not been able to influence games as we know that he can. And I think he looks so much better when there's somebody closer to him and he's able to change with him.
Sorry, Ian's just finished me on that. Isak looks like Amiobi, the Atkins guy. He really, really does. Someone give that man an apple. I don't agree. I don't disagree with that, Philip. Take the captaincy off Bruno. Maybe it's weighing heavy on him. It really, really is. But yeah, I mean, we definitely would change the formation. I really hope that now that we'll move on to the next section because this will be a quick one, mate. Wimbledon preview. It's wet. Is the preview really? There you go. It's like a weather forecast. There's your Wimbledon preview. That's the state of the pitch there. No, it's not a par 4 hole. It is Wimbledon's ground. The game is off, pissing down with rain. But I will say, Mark, I don't agree with slagging off Wimbledon as a football club. They're a fan-owned club. We all know the kind of history and how they were born out of the previous Wimbledon obviously disappearing and. The other team that I kept calling them, obviously resurfacing and moving to Milton Keynes.
It's a good job none of them watch our podcast. I tell you that.
I was going to say, I'd be getting some stick, but I'm not going to slag off Wimbledon for the not being able to host the game. The game has been moved to St James's Park next Tuesday. The Wimbledon fans, it'll be difficult for them to get up midweek, but they'll enjoy that trip, and I'm sure they'll have a good time. Hopefully, not too good of a time, but I actually think this might give Eddie a bit more time on the pitch, on the training pitch, to maybe realise where some of this stuff is going wrong. Maybe he'll watch the Evermore YouTube channel on one of his coffee breaks and go, hey, that Mark has pulled up a cracking formation there. I might try that. He'll get, Mad Dog, come have a look at this, and he'll pull him in. I don't like the other guy. He swears too much. He swears too much. I think Mad Dog would probably like me more because he's a bit of a wild man, so he might like my swearing. But yeah, I think Eddie will like your straight-laced formation and analyzation of the game, mate. But it might give us more time to figure out what's going wrong, have some real heart-to-heart with the players, and say, right, we need to sort this out. And then by the time City come to town, we always do raise our game against teams like City. There's no doubt about that, especially, at St James's Park, under the lights, Jodie's going mad, Toon Army in full voice. This is a perfect time for them to really go at it. And no one's expecting us to win the game. So we're the underdogs, which is probably where we perform the best, but, parking the Wimbledon preview and turn it almost into a slight City preview. That's the time to try something a bit different, is it not? Little formation tweaks here and there.
You don't want to go overboard because the temptation is to change everything and then it all falls apart. And I completely understand that there'll be an argument that says, well, if you go into that game and you change absolutely everything, City will come up against a side that's never done exactly what you've asked them to do, and they'll just steamroll them.
Yeah.
But there are tweaks there. There are ways to look at the way that City approach games. And I mean, you've only got to look at the game that Newcastle played against City last year. Early on, it was at the Cup game where City completely changed their style of play.
Haaland was on the bench, wasn't he? Yeah, and we beat them, didn't we, in the Cup?
They did, but I mean, eventually, obviously Newcastle won. But the early parts of that game, City completely altered the way that they set up to combat what Newcastle did because they were concerned about the way that Newcastle played. That I don't see them doing a similar sort of job at the moment because I just don't think there's as much of a threat there as there possibly has been before. But the real setup was to combat that midfield, that high press that works so well when it's in full flow. But it's just not there. But Newcastle have to do similar things. They've got to look at a game in isolation and go, what will work best in this scenario? Not a case of, well, if you go back in the past where you just play the same formation every single week at 4-4-2, the old sort of dinosaur school of we're not going to change, we're going to play the way exactly. You've got to adapt to what's ahead of you, and if it's a case of doing the unthinkable and doing a Bruce and dropping 5 at the back, maybe that is a way to combat. You can potentially then free up a Fabian Schär to step into that 6 role at times and become a 4-1, maybe it's a 4-1-4-1 or something along those lines. But you've got to take a risk in that regard. You've got to look and go, what suits this? And I don't think your standard 4-3-3 in the way that it's always been played by Newcastle is the right way to go for this. I think you've got to combat. You've got to sit in that hole, and especially if Foden's playing or De Bruyne is playing. That slide you brought up this morning that we put in the little ball through to De Bruyne, who finds those holes really, really well. Against a flat midfield, they will exploit that.
Foden, Bernardo Silva, the whole lot of them, they'll have a field day, mate. They'll have a field day. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy game. There is no doubt about it.
Just a touch, we've just hit 8,700. So whoever that was, thank you very much for dropping that in.
Fantastic! Thank you very much, guys. Really, really appreciate that. But yeah, I agree with some of the comments there. I think that this might be the catalyst, as Phoenix says there, for us to raise our game. And I think the fans will really rally us for this game because we are the underdogs, and they'll want a reaction from the lads, and the lads need to feed off that. Whoever's playing and whatever the formation is, they need to feed off that and put the performances in and see what comes May. You got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So we'll move on to the last section of the night, Out of Toon, where we talk about non-Newcastle United things, and it's quite pertinent actually as we play Manchester City in our next game. They played Arsenal the weekend, and that was a haymaker of a game. And we've got to talk about the main man, and it actually frightens me to my core, looking at how badly we're defending at the moment. This is probably the scariest Erling Haaland we've seen in the Premier League to date. And that's saying something because the guy has been unbelievable since he's been here. He's just gone 100 goals for Manchester City in 105 games, I think it is, which is just fucking ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. Harry Kane is shedding a tear somewhere, thinking of all the trophies that he could have won if Daniel Levy wasn't such a prick. But Haaland was on absolute fire at the weekend, not just for scoring the goal and a great finish, again, just for his general shithousery. So there was many great hits, literally, that Erling Haaland pulled off at the weekend. I think one of my personal favourites was smashing Party and putting him on his arse, which was absolutely brilliant. But this one was getting a lot of mileage. So when the equaliser went in, he then decided to pick up the ball. And that's Gabriel, I think, with his shirt over his head. And Erling Haaland decided to basketball throw the ball off his head as he ran away in celebration. And if you think it couldn't get better, Erling Haaland then decided to mug off old Lego head himself, Mikel Arteta, by saying, stay humble, because that's obviously what Arteta had said. And then Gabriel Jesus tried to have a word with him, to which point he called him a fucking clown. And I think a young Arsenal player who's trying to make his name also tried to say something, and he looked down at him and said, who the fucking hell are you? So this is Erling Haaland, Mark, at his shithouse best, and it's probably couldn't have come at the worst time for us, probably, mate. Couldn't really. So
yeah, he's unbelievable. He's a freak.
He's a monster, man. He's a fucking machine.
Glitch in the matrix is the right way to put it. I've seen loads of fans of Arsenal, well, particular Arsenal, but others.
I've seen some of these yellow card things.
Stay humble, and yet he does that. I'm really sorry, but when you've got 10 goals in 5 games and a goal every 45 minutes, and you've scored 230 goals by the age of 24, and let's go back as well to last week when Troy Deeney was trying to give Erling Haaland tips as to how to become a better striker. Troy Deeney, who scored less goals in his entire career than Erling Haaland has by the time. 46 goals less than Erling Haaland has by the age of 24. You've earned the right to be an arrogant monster, and it's exactly what he is.
I'm loving it.
The Party one was great because you see Thomas Partey step into him to try and stop his run through, and he gets completely leveled. He's like a weak offensive lineman in the NFL, and he gets steamrolled by the pass rush. It was brilliant. Absolutely loved that.
Well, it's funny, Baz is saying if Lascelles can handle Haaland, I'm sure Sheck. And the difference is, Baz, Lascelles is built for that kind of battle. Lascelles is like an old-fashioned centre-half. He loves that needle, that battle. Weirdly enough, if Lascelles was fit, I would back him against Haaland because that's his game. He seems to draw off of that. Whereas Cher's a bit more of a
physical.
Yeah, he does. He likes
battle, doesn't he?
Yeah, he likes that.
Sorry, just do that again.
Yeah. So I don't know what you're doing there, mate. Steady on for any audio, any audio viewers. But yeah, just Haaland at the minute is absolutely on fire, really, isn't it? We're gonna have to be really on our game to do anything to stop this man from playing. He's just an absolute monster. But I love the shit house bit. He is a bit of a madman, isn't he? I love Jack Grealish's face in that whole thing when they were trying to sort it out, and he was just like, like when your mates just had too much to drink and he's just being a bit of an arsehole. There was that kind of look of just that kind of acceptance from Jack Grealish as here he goes again, kind of thing. But I thought it was fucking mint. I really did. And massive credit to Erling Haaland for rattling those bastards. But I tell you, somebody else who's acting like a hard man, and he's definitely got small man syndrome, is Martinez from Manchester. Yeah, well, him as well. Martinez from Manchester United. If anyone didn't see this was fucking disgraceful. So this was a tackle. I saw a funny comment. Was it a reference to that crazy TikTok video where then women dance in the office, 5'3" in an attitude? That's basically this little twat. He's about the only person who makes me feel like I'm one of the giants of the BFG. This little short ass decided to jump in like that on a Crystal Palace player, and he didn't actually make contact, but it was so fucking bad that it warranted a red card for me straight away. It really, really did, and he didn't get one. And obviously the internet being superb as it is, it was meme heaven. This was one of my personal favorites, was him doing a WWE move off the top rope. But
there were hundreds already, so they were out within seconds.
Oh, mate, brilliant! But in a weekend where we see Morgan Gibbs-White get sent off for a second yellow and a robust tackle. Me and you disagree with it. That Martinez one is way worse than that. Way worse than that for me, mate. That's a double foot stamp off the ground. If he connects with his ankle, that's a snapper straight away, mate.
He's lucky he doesn't connect, and I think that's why he's saved. But it's a red card. The intent is there. With the way that he's done it, I don't care what he says. The intent is there to take the player at that point. It's not about
simple.
But more than that, if you make that and the ball moves and he gets it under his foot, he snaps his own ankle what the fuck are you doing? It's unbelievable. It deserved a red card, more so than some others this weekend.
Absolutely, just horrendous. And again, nothing was done about it. It was really, really poor. Another crazy decision this weekend was this, which was Vicario. As you can see there, I mean, the look of disbelief from the Brentford players. It's almost like, is he fucking handballing that? 6 yards out of his box, and he got away with that one as well, mate. What is going on?
Yeah, there were two that were kind of in that one motion. There were two where Brentford fans were up in arms over, thinking that he'd handballed it twice. It was the first one; he was just inside the box, but he's so far. How do none of the officials spot that? And I know they can't go back with VAR and look at it because it's not a red card offence, because he's not stopping a goal scoring or a clear goal scoring opportunity. It would have been a yellow card, but surely the referee can see that. I mean, it's not hard to see that you have a goalkeeper, 2-3 yards outside the box with his hand on the ball. I mean, it's just insane that he hasn't picked that up. It really is.
It's absolutely crazy. It really is. I can't get my head around how the referee has not looked at that and just said, "I'm sorry, but that that is miles out of the box." And then he's obviously he's going to make a decision about it. So I was just looking for something else there that we missed off on Out of Toon. I'll talk about it. We haven't got the thing for it. So there was news that Trent Alexander-Arnold apparently is in line to buy a League One side, and it blew my mind, Mark. It really, really did. These footballers want so much fucking money now. The fact that they're trying to buy league teams in other lower league kind of European countries is just absolutely beyond me. It really, really is. I mean, how in the name of fuck can that possibly happen? How can a Liverpool right back buy a League One side? I'm just trying to figure out which bloody team it was. How on earth can that possibly happen? I just don't understand this. I don't understand it, mate. I really, really don't. It
was Nantes, I think it was.
That's it, Nantes. How is this even possible? How is it even possible, mate? What would he be, part owner? Didn't Mbappe buy a club, or he was going to buy a club or something as well? I'm sure it was something like that, was it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of that is just made up news. We see an awful lot of it. Whether he's part of a consortium, I guess that might be part of it. But the one report that I just found, it says the Liverpool right back's been in the news lately. Blah 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 blah. He looked to be investing his entire fortune into. He's ready to invest his entire personal fortune into buying French size Nantes.
I find that hard to believe, his entire fortune. I find that hard to believe. I mean, shit, they've got good wine, but he's not going to blow all his money over there, is he? Fuck me. You know what I mean? Jesus Christ. That's a bit much. But yeah, I just found it breathtaking. I really, really did. Which were absolutely crackers. And I suppose another bit of news before we move on to the last piece was I think Harry Kane broke Wayne Rooney's record as well for scoring goals in the Champions League. So even though he won fuck all last season, Harry Kane, he's still scoring goals for Bayern Munich. Looking sharp as well, Mark, isn't he? To be fair, another hat-trick, I think, the Champions League, looking good.
Yeah, they're again. I mean, they at times, what is it, 5-1, 9-2, 6-1 in the last 3 games or something like that. I mean, you commented in our sort of chat that it was how easy is the Bundesliga at this point.
Okay.
We're getting to hold up a newspaper to prove the date and
thanks, Trevor.
As well at this point.
I feel like Tony Stark. Sorry, mate. God,
that's all right. What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying now.
I think it was something about like I am Iron Man, I think is what you were saying, mate. Something along those lines.
Gone completely. I've completely lost my train of thought now. Thanks for that.
That's the best part about the Monday show, mate. The best part about the Monday show. Yeah. There was another crazy red card at the weekend. Was the Blackburn Preston game, I think it was. And it just descended into fucking madness, really, didn't it? Where I think one of the players got bit on the back, which was just mental. I mean, somewhere Luis Suarez is rubbing his hands together going, this is the best game I've ever seen. He got bit on the back. And was this before or after he just decided to volley a player mid-air? Was it Beck? Beck who got sent off, wasn't it?
It was Beck, the kid that's in the process of being bitten, who had decided to volley one of the Preston players and got himself sent off. This was after Sam Greenwood had gone right through the back of somebody earlier on and got himself sent off.
Yeah,
and the Preston player there. Nothing happened. I mean, he's going to be facing a lengthy ban now. But I mean, what? You know that I cannot get my head around why you would do something like that. You know there are cameras absolutely everywhere.
Didn't a Wrexham player nibble a Birmingham player's leg as well the other week in that Hollywood game as well? What the fuck is going on? Who's coaching these players? Hannibal Lecter? What they keep biting people for?
Is that not just one of those weird Hollywood parties though?
Jesus Christ. Diddy,
we'll not go there.
We're not covering P. Diddy on this channel. I'm sure the True Geordie will cover that much better than we will on his channel.
Let's not.
My days. Well, I'll tell you, Mark, just to end it, just to make us all feel a little bit better as well. It was a tough weekend for Newcastle United. We got battered against Fulham, but we weren't the only person who got battered this weekend. Anthony Joshua took the sting out of our defeat by getting absolutely pummeled by Daniel Dubois, which I did watch, Mark did watch as well. We don't do box on this channel, but I tell you something, my days, that would have been something to cover. I did watch the stream actually from the big man, True Geordie. I know watches us from time to time, so hello to the big man if he is watching. But that they were unbelievable. They couldn't believe what they were saying, and neither could I. I mean, the weird thing was with Joshua, he was so cocky in this fight. Even when he got battered, he got hit with that big right hand. Conor McGregor jumped up about 8 foot in the air. All the cocaine fell out of his nose as he jumped. That's how excited he was. And then Joshua was putting his tongue out. He was taunting the crowd, and you were thinking, mate, you're getting fucking annihilated here. What are you doing? And then he tried to come back into it. And oh my days, that right hand. Good night, sweetheart. I mean, he hit the deck so bad. He looked like that shit Australian breakdancer at the Olympics. Trying to get
Ray gun. At one point he looked like he was going to try and do the Booker T Spinneroonie. I think you sent me that picture, didn't you?
He did.
But it made us. I mean, just the absolute. When you in the process of having your ass handed to you, which clearly he was, to have the goal to then be to start being cocky, to show Dubois to his seat, to start giving it to the fans around the thing. You getting your ass kicked and you're acting like this. And then it was 20 seconds he starts giving it back to the crowd again, turns around. And in fairness, I did wonder in that 5th round whether he was going to start to come back and had Dubois maybe just run out a little bit of steam. And if he could hold on, maybe he could go the distance and put him down later on. But as always with Joshua, as he gives, he leaves himself open, and that hand comes across and catches him, and it's just, I have to say I'm not the biggest Joshua fan. I did chuckle when he hit the deck. I mean, I'm glad he's all right, but I did chuckle when he went down because it was just. Deserved it.
That you are terrible, but to be fair, he was incredibly cocky. The best reaction was Tyson Fury in the crowd. He said, "He's cost me 150 million, you bastard," and he walked away, which was absolutely brilliant. So I did enjoy Tyson Fury. He was shouting for somebody to pay him his money. I think I don't know if it was Frank, was it Eddie Hearn? He was going, "Give me my money." Which was absolutely brilliant. So that was Tyson at his best, to be fair. But that's us done, guys. A little bit of boxing for you, a little bit of a change to the usual speed of what's going on. But that's what Out of Toon does. We cover all kinds of stuff on there. But thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We always appreciate it. It always helps the episode flow. Thank you for taking us over the 8,700 mark. Only 300 to go before we hit 9, and you can get a chance to win that belter prize with the blue McEwen's retro shirt. We'll be back. It's going to be a bit of a time until we're back. I'm sure we'll have some, thoughts or rants of the day. I'll try not to shout about journalists anymore. I think I've done enough of that tonight, unless they wind me up anymore. But we'll be back with some videos as usual, transfer links, maybe if there is any, and we'll obviously cover the City preview, and then we'll be back for post-match on City as well. As William says, hit the thumbs up. Thank you, William, if you haven't already. Definitely. Mate, really appreciate that. Like the video. Thank you, Marcus. Let's hope we do hit 9K soon. We want to really get to 10K. That's a massive milestone for us, the next milestone for us, and we'd love all you guys for helping us get there, especially some of the long-term viewers who've been there right from the start.
Actually, on that subject, can I just say thank you to a good number who have just ticked over the year of being members of the channel as well.
Oh, brilliant. Give them a shout out, mate. Give them a shout out.
Absolutely just legendary people that you are. I noticed it the other day, and I actually hadn't picked up on it properly.
You're not gonna go Oprah, are you? You get a car, because we haven't got the budget for that, mate. Don't start shouting
emotional. No, it literally what I saw one of the little icons pop up the other day, and I looked at it and I just went, Jesus, it's got to that point already. So there are a few. I mean, there's a few coming up as well. So to the likes of George and Ty and RG and Colin and I think it's James and Marcus that have all been.
Get your model car, Marcus. Get your model car. We'll get your little DeLorean or something, mate.
So no, I mean, just a huge thank you, because genuinely the support means an awful lot to it, because we do it because we love it, but we do it because you guys enjoy what we do as well. So absolutely. you know, much respect to you and thank you very much.
Massive. We do appreciate all the love. We've had some the rain has fell, and with it has fell a few weapons from the sky that have appeared in our comments. And I wasn't in a playful mood for these tits earlier on today, and I did set about a couple of them in the comments with my cutting blade, which I know some of you do enjoy. But thanks to all you guys who are awesome in the comments, and you do keep these arseholes from the door from us. You know my motto: if you're a prick, you'll get the flick. But you guys are absolute legends. We love you to bits. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We plan to do this for as long as you guys enjoy it, as long as we enjoy it. So onwards and upwards for us. Thank you so much, guys. Have a belter morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. We'll be back with some more Evermore soon. See you later.
See you guys. Cheers.